Welcome back. I'm sure you remember that when we left off last time, Polly had been found dead in Helen's lily pond. Chapter 28. Polly's death was ruled a heart attack. Nothing could have been more natural or more obvious. Doris and Helen spent the next few days in a kind of daze, floating in and out of the reality that they had actually killed someone. Doris was fond of reminding Helen that they would never know who actually did. Helen just couldn't believe Polly was gone. It was oddly unsettling not to have such a force of nature at hand. Helen wondered how long it would be before she stopped expecting a call or a sudden visit, and her fishes died, all of them. The lilies were fine, but not one fish had survived Polly's fall, or the oleander had done them in. Doris and Helen removed them and threw them out along with the broken glasses. "What are we going to do about the pond, do you think?" Helen asked one morning. "Restock? Most of the lilies survived." "You know, sweetie, I've been thinking about that. Maybe we should fill it in," Doris suggested somewhat hesitantly. "Fill it in? My pond?" Doris put her arms around Helen. "Just kind of as a way to get some closure. What do you think? We could plant it with Polly's favorite flowers." "Iris," Helen said through tears. Polly loved iris. "Iris it is then. It's just the right time to plant them. We'll have the pond filled in and plant ourselves." She was holding a sad and grateful Helen when Alice walked in. "Oh, Mom," Alice said, joining in on the hug. "I'm so sorry about Polly. I know she was difficult in the end, but this..." Then she saw it, just out of the corner of her eye. A cup, a good china coffee cup, wedged under the kitchen bookshelf. She picked it up. "What's this doing here?" she asked aloud. Doris turned in time to see the cup, just as Alice turned it to look inside. "Don't touch that!" Doris suddenly yelled. Alice dropped the cup. It broke. "I'm sorry, Mom. I know you love those cups." "That's all right, Alice," Helen said, carefully taking the broken pieces from Alice's hands. "We hardly use them. Let me get that. It's just as well that it broke. Looks like it's been under there for a while." Doris watched Helen throw away the deadly cup. Her heart was beating so that she felt everyone must be able to hear. When Alice left the room, Doris collapsed onto a kitchen chair. "Oh my God," Helen began. "That's the second time Alice has almost gotten into the oleander because of us. What else did we leave undone?" Nothing, dear. I'm so sorry about the cup. I used it to hold the sap and left it under the shelf to clean it later. I just forgot about it in all of the excitement." "Well, these things can't happen, Doris." Helen was angry and scared. Doris reached for her hand. "Hey, you, look at me. We're okay, you know. We did it. Polly is out of our lives. She can't hurt either of us anymore." Doris smiled. "We have the rest of our lives together. Here with Alice and Joe and Lil. We have the perfect life, sweetie." Helen looked at Doris, almost smiling. "We pulled off the perfect murder." "We did indeed," Doris replied, kissing her. Alice stopped just outside the kitchen door. She couldn't imagine what she was hearing. She covered her mouth and backed away slowly. When she reached the stairs, she ran down them and ran into Joe, running up. "Joe, stop," she said quietly. "Come back downstairs now." She almost pulled him off balance. Wait, Alice, I haven't even had my coffee." Joe was smiling at Alice. It was a smile she recognized. "Joe, please, just go back downstairs. I'll bring you some coffee. Has Lil left for school yet?" "No. Why?" "Wait till she leaves. Then we'll talk," Alice insisted. "Alice, you okay?" Joe asked. "No," Alice said, shaking her head. "No. Just get Lil off and we'll talk." Okay, was all that Joe could say. Lillian came up the stairs. "Why are you two talking? Here, move it. I need to get by. I'm making a quick lunch, then I'm gone. I've got a ride." "Be careful. Have a good day," Joe and Alice said in unison. "Will do," Lil answered. Alice made Joe wait until they heard the kitchen door close. When she got coffee for both of them and brought it back downstairs, she was shaking. "My God, Alice, what's wrong?" Joe asked, taking both cups from her. "Sit down." She sat. Then she was back on her feet. "I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. No, that's impossible." She turned to look at Joe. "Isn't it?" I'm going to need a little more information there, Alice. What can't you believe? Alice turned and looked at Joe. She was so pale that he insisted that she sit. For God's sake, tell me what's wrong. I think Mom and Dad killed Polly, Alice whispered. Joe started to laugh. He laughed and laughed. Alice looked at him in disbelief and anger. Joe noticed her expression and said, "You're not serious, are you? Alice, what a thing to say!" He lowered his voice. "Why would you think that Helen and Doris killed Polly? Killed anyone?" "I heard them talking about it," Alice whispered. "You were eavesdropping. Well, that explains it. You must have misunderstood." Joe was smiling. It struck Alice as a particularly condescending smile. "Joe, listen. This is me, Alice. I'm not making this up. I didn't misunderstand." "How can you misunderstand? We got away with the perfect murder." "The perfect murder?" Joe was laughing again. "A book they were reading? A book about killing someone named Polly? Listen, they said that Polly was out of their lives now, and that they had pulled off a perfect murder. What do we do?" "So wait just a minute, Alice. Think about what you're saying." Joe was still smiling. "Sweet, kind Helen and level-headed Doris Martin conspired to kill Polly and pulled it off. And now the two of them are just carrying on as usual. You should have heard them, Joe." "We'll just talk to them, Alice," Joe suggested. "What?" Alice asked, somewhat afraid. "That's the only way to straighten this out," Joe replied. "We'll just ask them about Polly's death. Just a normal conversation. Sympathy." "Okay. And say what exactly? It's sad that Polly's dead. Did you two kill her?" "Well, of course not. Let me do the talking. Is that okay?" Yeah, that's good. You talk. I'll just try not to be sick," Alice responded. Chapter 29. Joe and Alice went upstairs and found Helen and Doris still in the kitchen. They were just about to head to the porch with a tray of muffins. "Here, let me get those," Joe said, taking one off the top. Alice rolled her eyes. "How is everyone this morning?" Joe continued nervously. When they reached the porch, everyone sat. No one spoke. Everyone tried to smile. Finally, Alice gave up on Joe carrying the conversation and began. "Mom, you doing okay these days? I mean, with Polly gone?" Helen almost choked on her coffee. Doris looked at her with a warning to keep it together. Mom, you're not okay. Of course you're not. I shouldn't have asked. I know you miss Polly." She paused. "That was so strange, how she just had a heart attack." Alice looked carefully at her mom. "Polly, of all people, she seemed so healthy." This time it was the muffin Helen choked on. She just couldn't listen to her daughter ask about Polly. She ran for the bathroom. Doris looked at Alice as if surprised and followed Helen out. Sweetie, wow, you've got to calm down." "Doris, stop telling me that. We killed Polly. Killed her. And now what's this with Alice? It's like a third degree." "No, Helen, it just sounds that way to you. She's just trying to be kind, to see how you are." Doris was rubbing Helen's back. "You have a case of the nervous gilts, and you've got to get past it. After all, we don't know who killed Polly. But we know we both tried." Joe and Alice, left alone, began to speculate. Alice suddenly remembered the coffee cup. Oleander. Joe, it was oleander in the cup. That's why Doris didn't want me to touch it. Check the kitchen trash. Maybe it's still there. "Shh," Joe said, as Doris and Helen came back onto the porch. "I'm sorry, honey," Helen said. "It's just hard to talk about Polly." "I know, Mom. We'll stop talking about her," Alice promised, watching for her mom's reaction. It was one of relief. "Thank you, dear. That would help, at least for a while." Helen forced a smile. Alice smiled back, stood up, and motioned to Joe that it was time to leave. "We're still unpacking, Mom. I'm sick of looking at boxes. We're going to finish up. Talk to you later." As soon as they were out of earshot, Joe picked up right where they left off. "What cup, Alice? You've lost me. And you want me to go through the trash?" Joe asked. "This morning," Alice told him, "I saw a cup, a china coffee cup under the kitchen shelf. I picked it up, and when I looked inside and saw the sticky mess, it never occurred to me that it was oleander sap, but it must have been. Doris jumped out of her skin as soon as I touched it. She knew what was in that cup. She stopped suddenly and turned toward Joe. "Oh my God, Joe, I saw Mom and Doris cleaning out the lily pond. It wasn't just dead fish they were taking out of there. I didn't think about it at the time, but they found broken glass." "So?" Joe asked, confused. "So what if it was a glass?" Joe looked at her as if to say, "Go on." "Joe, what if it was a glass that had sap in it too? They killed Polly." Alice lowered her voice. "They killed her with a poison drink. We really do have to check the trash." "Okay," Joe said. "Okay. You have my attention, but not now. Everyone is here. We have to wait until they leave. Do they ever leave?" Alice laughed nervously. "Well, maybe to go to the library or the grocery store. I can request something for supper that will make a trip necessary. They'll both go. They always do." "Okay, you plan that, and we'll check the trash. But try to calm down, Alice. This could still be nothing." I know," she said, but she didn't believe a word of it. After Helen and Doris left for the store, Joe and Alice carefully searched the kitchen trash and found the cup. The broken shards were still sticky. They found no other broken glass. "The outside trash," Alice yelled. "It isn't picked up until tomorrow." "The outside trash? You want to go through the outside trash? Yuck! Who knew you were such a detective?" Joe laughed. "This isn't funny, Joe. Mom and Doris killed Polly." "Killed her? What on earth would have pushed them that far?" "One thing at a time, Alice. Let's find the glass." They found pieces of 2 glasses among the dead fish, almost at the bottom of the trash. They carefully removed them, put the trash back in the can, and went back into the house. They looked at the cup and broken glasses, all sticky with sap. "Now what do you say, Joe?" Alice asked. "Still think it was a book they were reading?" Joe sat down on the kitchen floor. He couldn't believe what he was thinking. They did it. They killed Polly. "But why?" he asked out loud. "I have no idea. They were angry, but this? There's something we don't know about. There just has to be. How are we going to find out?" Joe got up off the floor and sat in a kitchen chair. He dropped the cup and the fishy-smelling glasses into a Ziploc and hid it in the cupboard. "We might need those," he said, and poured more coffee. Alice sat suddenly and looked at Joe. 2 glasses, Joe. I caught them both with 2 full martini glasses. They were in the kitchen. I accused them of double-fisted drinking. I told them it was good I didn't like more martinis, or I would have taken it off their hands. Oh my God, Joe, they were poisoned. What if I had taken one and downed it?" Alice was sick now. She ran from the room. When she returned, Joe was waiting. "Better?" he asked. Sure, Alice said. "How are you so calm? We have a murder on our hands, and I ran right into the murderers with their weapons." "I'm not calm," Joe assured her. "I'm floored. You're right. Everything you're saying makes sense." "Now what do we do?" Alice asked. "Talk to them?" Joe suggested. "What?" Alice looked at Joe with actual fear in her eyes. "What else is there to do? We have nothing to tell us why. We're at the end of our evidence." Alice looked directly at Joe. "How do you know we're at the end of our evidence?" "Say again," Joe responded. "Really, Joe, what if we just haven't looked hard enough? We need to keep searching. Surely there's something to tell us why this all happened." She was crying now. "We just have to find out. We just have to." Okay, Joe assured her. "We'll search." "Where?" "Everywhere. Wherever we need to, and now." They frantically searched every drawer and every desk and table in the main house. Nothing. They searched the kitchen and all the closets. They searched the porch. Likewise, nothing. "The only place left is their room," Alice said, heading that way. Joe stopped her, holding her by the arm. "Their room, Alice? Really?" "Murder, Joe, murder," Alice insisted. Okay. He let go and followed her. They searched the drawers and the closet and found nothing unusual. Then Alice opened a small drawer in an old sewing table under the window. She saw a piece of folded copy paper. "Well, this doesn't belong here," she said aloud. She opened it and began to read. She sat down on the bed. "Joe, you'll never believe this." They heard the kitchen door open. "Oh my God, we weren't watching the time. Here, put this back." Alice pushed the note at Joe. No, Joe insisted. I still need to read it. He crammed it into his pocket. You'll never believe it, Alice said again. They met the shoppers in the kitchen. Hi, Mom, Doris, Alice began nervously. How was the store? It was the store, Alice, Helen answered, smiling at her daughter. I got everything for supper. Who's cooking this, by the way? Helen asked as she put away the groceries. I'll help you, Mom. Thanks. Right now, I need to find Joe. Alice hurried from the room and found Joe downstairs. Thanks for abandoning me. Sorry, I admit it. I ran. She's your mom. Joe, did you read it? Alice whispered loudly. Not yet. I was waiting for you, Joe replied. Well, read it, Alice insisted, exasperated. Joe read the article over and over. This is unbelievable. Poor Doris. To be called a kidnapper and a murderer. And my mom is a murderer, Alice was crying. Alice, Joe reached for her arm and encouraged her to sit. This all makes sense now. Really, was all that Alice could think to say. Yeah, honey, think about it. Polly must have found out about this. She must have threatened to turn Doris in. So what? They just killed her? We have to talk to them, Joe. I have to know what's going on, don't you? Alice was out of the door before she finished the question. Hell yeah, Joe replied. They found Helen and Doris in their usual spot on the porch. Mom, Alice began. She realized she was out of breath. Then she paused and continued. Mom, I have to ask you something. It isn't pleasant. That's as far as she got before she covered her mouth and sat down. Helen and Doris looked at each other. Alice, Helen leaned over to feel her daughter's forehead. Are you sick? Alice pulled away from her mother's hand. I think so, Mom. I really do. We found the glasses, Helen, Joe said suddenly. What glasses? Helen asked. The broken glasses in the trash outside, Joe replied. We found them, and we found this. Joe pulled the paper from his pocket. You went through my things? Doris asked loudly. Yes, we did, Joe continued. We thought maybe you had killed someone. We know, Doris. We know everything. Doris sat down and put her head in her hands. You don't know everything. You don't know everything. We had to do it. We just had to. Doris, Helen yelled. They know, Helen. Doris looked up. What's the use? Helen and Doris tried to paint a picture of what life had been like with Polly in the end. They tried to make Joe and Alice see how hurtful and truly destructive she had become. She threatened to turn me in, Doris said. I know she would have done it. Even if I had left town, she would have turned me in. You don't know that, Alice responded. Yes, we do, Helen and Doris said in unison. That's what pushed us to this, honey, Helen continued, no matter what we did or didn't do. After Polly found out about Brogdon, there was no turning back. She was very clear about her intentions. We just didn't see any other way out. It was a horrible decision to make. Just horrible. Alice started to hug her mom, but she pulled back. She realized she was afraid. Her mother seemed like an entirely different person. So, Mom, what now? Alice asked through nervous tears. Nothing now, honey. If you can live with what's happened, if you can't, I can't believe you two had the wherewithal to pull this off, Joe said suddenly. Oleander, how did you know? Alice's mind raced. She thought of the residents and families at DAL, about her mom's muffins, her insistence that doll muffins were only for doll residents, and then the Life and Leisure write-up. She looked at her mom and backed up until she bumped into the wall. How many? She asked suddenly. Helen looked up surprised. How many what? How many people have you... Alice stopped and looked at Joe, who was completely confused. Helped at DAL. Helen and Doris both put their coffee cups down, almost dropping them. Alice, that's not something I talk about, Helen said softly. And how on earth? It wasn't hard to figure out, Mom. The oleander, the newspaper article, the muffins, and now Polly. So how many? Alice insisted. Oh, wow, was all that Joe could say. Helen didn't answer. Don't you even know? Alice asked, alarmed. Of course I know, honey. It's just not something I talk about, not even with Doris. It's agony to watch folks just waste away. If they're really ready to go, I'm very comfortable helping them. That's murder, Mom. Alice really couldn't believe what she was hearing. On the one hand, she understood and maybe even admired her mother's courage and commitment, but on the other, murder? It's love, Alice, and it's never done lightly. There's always a struggle with myself. And Polly, was that a struggle? The biggest struggle of all, and I'm still not sure it was the right thing. Helen's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I'll ever be sure about that. Chapter 30. Doris knew they had to leave. Helen was practically sick every time she saw anything that reminded her of Polly, including her own daughter. Alice floated somewhere among feelings of disbelief, genuine fear, and compassion. Joe was trying to make sure Lil never found out. It was just too much. Things were unraveling quickly and in unacceptable ways. Doris was packing when Helen came into the room. Going somewhere? Helen asked. We're going somewhere. Doris waved 2 plane tickets in Helen's face. Helen looked at them and gasped. Tahiti? We're going to Tahiti? I'm glad you like the idea, particularly as you paid for the tickets. Well, Tahiti, you know I love the beach. My favorite place in the world most of the time. And you don't have to ask about the money, Doris. I told you years ago that my money is yours. I trust you. I've always wanted to see it, and Doris put down her packing and looked at Helen. If we like it, maybe we should consider staying. Sure, Doris, as long as you like. No, I mean really staying, moving there permanently. Doris noticed that Helen looked shocked. We have to go somewhere, sweetie, don't you think? Yeah, I do actually, Helen agreed, but a permanent move so far away? Doris sat down on the bed and pulled Helen to a seat beside her. Alice is nervous. She doesn't know how to react to us. Helen was crying now. Doris put her arm around her. I really think that if we get away, Alice will calm down and see all of this in a better light, at least the DAL stuff. She needs to process, and without us here. Helen looked at Doris through tears. Doris went on, and Lil, what if she found out? She would be pretty devastated. I doubt she could understand why we did what we did. Soon the whole town would know, and we'd be up a creek without... Okay, you're right, Helen interrupted, but leave Dysonville? Doesn't that sound a bit lame to you? Doris laughed. It really does. Helen was laughing now too. Why would anyone leave beautiful Dysonville to go live in Tahiti? When do we leave? They left within the week. A letter for Alice was all that Helen could muster. She just couldn't say goodbye to her only child after all that had happened. And for now, in any case, Alice could barely talk to her mom. Helen knew they were making the right decision. They had to go. There was too much history, too much pain, and too much risk. The letter read, My dearest Alice, Doris and I are gone. We are flying to Tahiti, and if we like it, we will be staying. I hope you can understand that we need a fresh start, to say the least. I feel like a coward writing to you like this, but given what has transpired lately, the house is yours. Move upstairs, paint, whatever you like. Throw out the oleander. I can't look at them now. I hope that with us gone, you can start to process what you know. Try to understand why we did what we did. Try to understand that we felt we had no other choice. Maybe we were wrong. I don't even know myself right now, so that's another reason for a radical change of scenery. I love you. After a while, maybe you can come visit. What a place to see and enjoy. In the meantime, we'll be just a phone call away. Love, Mom. I'll stop there.